Well, hello and welcome to our Subconscious Speaks. My name is Don Robert,
I'm Tina Orlando.
and together we are Tina, Orlando, and Dawn. No, no, that might just be for us and about 17 of you that get that joke, but that's okay. We like
That's
to have a
okay.
little bit of fun here. We are both award-winning, top of our class graduates in clinical hypnotherapists from the Hypnosis Motivation Institute here in Tarzana, California. We met there. Golly, I just celebrated my 5th anniversary from starting at HMI. So we've known each other for 4.5 years.
Yes, yes, we have. Pretty awesome.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
so this podcast really was born about 4 years ago,
Mhm.
because Tina and I talked constantly every day, like just became the best of friends. And I just love you to death.
I love you bunches, man.
I know you do. I know you do. So as you have heard, maybe this is your first time here, so welcome. Welcome to the podcast. We're pretty proud of the fact that we're now streaming on all the majors, right? So Apple Podcasts, you just got to
Yeah.
search Our Subconscious Speaks, 3 separate words. Obviously, we're on YouTube, so if you wanted to see us, that's where you would go for the visual. And then we're also on good old Spotify. So we're swinging the bat.
Yes, we are. We
And we're
swing for the
also
fences
been,
around here.
this is really just the culmination of like all these conversations that we had. And we're like, we should record it and share it as a podcast because we have such wonderfully invigorating conversations and topics that we've talked about. Like sometimes now we'll be talking and be like, no, 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 save it, save it, save it.
Wait, 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 wait. Save for the
So
podcast
I will invite everyone to feel free to like, follow, subscribe to our channels. Feel free to
and comment.
share it. Yeah, you
Don't
know,
forget to comment because we respond.
we actually do. We've had some comments, and we've actually not only do we respond, but then we incorporated one of our questions from one of our loyal listeners, our first 10,
Yes.
to respond to it in our session. I think it was last week.
Hmm.
Episode 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yep. So yeah,
So
absolutely.
today's topic is the pause. I did my radio announcer voice there. Do you see that? The
I got
pause
it. I
in a
got it.
galaxy far, far away.
Thank you. Rick Dees, Casey
Yeah.
Kasem, showing my age. It's fine.
Who?
Casey Kasem?
It was something about your feet on the floor, the star head in the stars or something. I forget what the sign off was.
Really? Now I need to know it.
You know, it's something like your head in the clouds or through.
I was going to say it's head in the clouds, isn't it? Reaching
Right,
for
but
the
the feet
stars.
are feet are somewhere.
Yeah,
So
firmly
yeah,
planted.
firmly something something. I'll tell you what, I'll go research that while you're while we're in midstream here.
That's right.
So Tina, go ahead and lead us off about this topic. What in the heck are they talking about? The pause. So start us off.
Well, well, this is you're big on this pause thing. Like, you always take the moment to pause and then respond. Some of us just, go out there and say what we got to say. But the pause, like if there's I've noticed that there are a lot of people that don't pause.
Mm,
And that is really what we're kind of talking about is they don't pause, why they don't pause, what they could do to pause. Um, and interestingly, it kind of clicked in my head. Like, I think that people that don't really pause, it comes from a parental dynamic of them always being told to be quiet or be seen and not heard. Are you really trying hard not to interrupt me right now and
I'm
pause?
actively listening and responding to, for those of you that can't see the video, I'm not making faces. I'm just
Nope.
I'm actively listening.
No, I was kind of teasing, like,
I know.
you're doing the pause thing. But I think it actually comes from a parental dynamic because that's kind of where we learn these habits and patterns that we have. we learn them in a very literal state. So if you have a mom and a dad that, or, parental unit that, doesn't really focus in, like back when we were growing up, kids were seen and not heard a lot of the time. And I really think that that's where this lack of pausing comes from, because they really, as adults, they really want to be heard. What do
You
you think?
just reminded me of what did they used to, didn't our parents used to count? Right? We're the
Um,
counting culture, not
yes,
counting crows or culture.
yes,
But if I'm going to count to three, or what was
yeah.
yours,
You
right?
you've got until I count to three to get your butt out of here.
Right, right.
Um, so
And
that's the
that
only
was their
pause we
version of
got.
pausing and
That
not
was.
swinging, right?
It's true. It's true. It's very, very true. So I really think that's where it's kind of born out of, is um that literal learning state that we are in when we're younger. And then as adults, as soon as we kind of get our voice, maybe as teenagers or young adults, we have then a problem with taking that pause, because we really want to be heard. We have a lot to say. And then we just don't ever learn to say, okay, I need a second here before I say things I'm going to regret. Or I'm going to just, throw up at the mouth and not make, any points. You're just, barking at the moon type of thing. Um, but I think it also comes from a lack of being heard. Not only is it that parental dynamic, but then the offshoot is a lack of being heard. And when we have that lack of being heard, that will play out in, most relationships. And, then it goes into your work life and everything else. So what are you thinking over there, Don? Because you've been very quiet, pausing.
Well, I'm making sure that you feel seen and heard. And I just wrote down, like, I loved what you said. It's like flashback city over here, to
Yeah.
my childhood, right? Where,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, you're talking about where our suggestibility, which we've talked about in other episodes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Suggestibility is just how we learn.
Yeah.
And you're saying literally, like you literally were told,
Yes.
so there's literal and there's inferred ways of
Uh-huh.
learning. And so I appreciate that. Um, this topic of being heard it's an interesting thought. I don't know that if I've wandered off into that. Like if you've been told to just
See.
simmer down there.
Oh, that's an East Coast thing.
Yeah, that is an old Saturday Night Live thing, is what that is.
Okay.
But yeah, if you've been told to just be quiet, be not be heard, or what was it? Not be heard or seen. What was that? What was that one?
You need to be seen and not heard,
Right. You
which I heard a
kind of
lot.
get programmed to keep your mouth shut, unless you're like me, or maybe some of our listeners, right? And you talk under your breath.
Oh yeah. Or, you say things as you walk away, or
Uh-huh.
because,
Uh-huh.
you are, I think that starts like that rebel stage, right? So, and that really builds the rebel in you, where you're, oh,
Yeah.
I can't, I have to be seen and not heard. Want to bet? Want to bet? Do you know how many times I was told, Tina, stop talking?
Right. So
That
we're conditioned to be quiet.
absolutely,
So how
absolutely.
could we possibly know what it feels like to be heard when we've been told to shut up our whole life, right?
Well, I think that's part of, that's part of the thing. That's what I think a lot of people are lacking, is the validation of being heard. They don't even know what that feels like. And
Mhm.
sometimes it will feel like you're being placated, or I'm escaping the word right now. But placating is a really good thing, where we feel that way. Like, oh, they're just pretending to hear me, or maybe I don't have anything really valuable to say. And there's a lot that actually goes into that not being heard thing. And then we, of course, turn it into motor mouths and have to talk a lot. And then usually you turn into a know it all. Um,
Takes one to know one.
well, because you want to be heard, because you want to be seen, you want to be validated. Like you do know a few things, and you don't have to shut up and just be seen. Um, I think it's a big thing going on in the world, and that nobody's even talking about because nobody even has thought about it. I do you think they're talking about it? I don't know.
I think this is a ground. I mean, I think that we've kind of took an exit off of the pause into more of the depth of what gets us to the point where we should even be talking about this ability to pause, right?
True,
It's
true,
really the story of our
right,
Gen X,
right,
um, of why, and then
mm,
we've gone on to have children, and
right.
I'd like to think in both our cases that that next generation learned from what we learned in our generation, and the idea of obviously is hopefully it gets handed on,
Hopefully,
that it gets better and better each generation.
we're hoping. We're hoping.
Yes.
Well, we're hoping it gets better. I'm hoping
I'd
that
like
the
to think it
pendulum
is. Like,
does
my
not
children
swing
didn't
too
grow up with
far.
the fear of the bell.
Oh no, no. Well, no.
I mean, I know there's still a lot of people out in America that still think spanking is a good idea.
They do. They do. I mean, I grew up with a wooden spoon. So until the day she cracked it on my ass and it broke.
The nuns broke a ruler on my knuckles.
See, it's a whole generational thing, right? So I think that, and I know this is about the pause, but I think this um, presets the pause. Like you can't get to the pause point unless we talk about why we won't shut up now.
Would it be too much of a leap to say that, because not everyone grew up like we did, right?
No,
But most people have some sort of childhood traumas that they've dealt with,
everyone, even with
right?
perfect parents, has childhood trauma.
Right.
I
Because
don't
we're not even
care how
talking about the
perfect your
peer
life.
stuff. We're like,
No.
we're just talking about the home life right now, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I'm just
And by the
wondering,
way, this is what happens for those
yeah.
people that are listening. This is what happens. We
They're like, why
started
aren't
with
they
one
staying on
topic.
topic?
Right. We won't ever really stay on topic because there's so many things that go into that topic that
Yeah.
we think that we need to cover. And of course, maybe we should have just called it motor mouth. I don't know.
Nah. No, I think
I'm
really
teasing.
ultimately, I was excited about this episode, like you had said earlier, like I have to actively participate in pausing. Well, first it starts with kind of keeping an eye out. I'm looking for the kind of the four horsemen, right? The selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When it crops up, I've got some instructions I've learned over my years on how to activate this moment, the pause, so that you maybe give yourself a chance to respond as opposed to react. And I think what we're talking about are in our childhood conversations, and we're not exclusive to that, is that we have to learn that as adults, applying some self-care, because I don't know about you, but I was certainly not taught, other than the I'm going to count to.
Okay.
There was a count to 10 though thing,
There was, I
right?
mean, as you said it,
Right?
I heard it in the back of my head. It is, I'm going to count to 10. And if you don't behave, then there are
So
consequences.
why do you think we anchor onto the darker side
The,
of
the pause, the counting to 10.
yeah, like that's a significant pause. That's a really solid pause. Just don't remember it working.
Because I think it was threatened. I think it was a
Ah,
threat, and then behind that was you're going to be quiet, unheard. You just need to be seen and behave yourself.
some very confusing times, like mixed
Well,
messages of like,
I think it's a generation of mixed messages. Like behave yourself, but go outside, do whatever you want.
right, home by
Like,
dark.
sure,
Yeah, it was another time, people.
it was absolutely a different time. But here's the thing: just like this episode, you can't fix today's problems without going back to yesterday. So I think it's kind of important to really look at, the things that cause why we are like we are today
Yeah.
and how we can fix those things. So, um, the power of the pause.
Yeah, that's
Not a
just a
threat.
little thing I came up with because, when I learned it and started practicing it and getting results, I then started teaching it to others. And who doesn't like a good little acronym? And POP, right? Power of the
Right.
pause.
Got
Yeah,
it.
there's a T in there, but POP is just much easier to remember. So,
Yeah.
like I said, a lot of my early self-care activities included attending a 12-step program. And
Right.
I'm a product of kind and loving and generous friends and sponsors that have kind of shown me the way. And part of that, a big part of that was this kind of watching and pausing.
Do you think that you have really embraced that because you were lacking it as a kid growing up?
I think with all of the educational avenues I've traveled, whether that's, official collegiate, or at HMI and the AOS program, I continue to have learned about myself. And, I I really drive positivity, and it's because
Right.
of my own need. Like, I have to
Right.
stay positive because
Right.
I can slide into the darkness pretty easily.
Yeah, I get it. That's why I'm
Not
asking.
everybody's like that. Some of us are. Some of us have to work overtime to kind of not be an a-hole. And by the way, just for the record, I have not sworn in 6 episodes. You said the
Good
A
for you.
word. I don't know if that's
I did.
considered explicit language. I think it is.
Well,
Anyways, uh, yeah.
whatever.
So off track. Just went off.
It's
I'm just
okay.
very proud of the fact because I like to swear, by the way.
Well,
If
yeah. I
those
mean,
of you that
we
know me
could
have
put
talked to
up.
me.
I mean, every episode I have done, we've done some type of trivia, but we could put up a parental advisory occasionally.
Oh, this is not
You're
marked
welcome.
for children to watch on YouTube.
Right. So I don't think we need a parental advisory, and I think everybody
You
can
don't think
handle
we
the
need the
word
sticker
app.
yet? All right.
No,
Okay.
no, yeah, no, I think we're good. I'll let you know when the X needs to be put there. More X's
All
will
right.
definitely get there.
So I think it's
But
born out of necessity for
right,
me personally, and I have never considered myself to be, I feel like I'm middle of the road, kind of your typical human. I have some very wonderful qualities that make me an extraordinary human at times, but generally
right,
we all have kind of varied traits of excellence and,
sure.
lethargy, right? So I feel like I'm a pretty decent example of your typical American.
Okay, you're middle of the road. You got
Yeah,
problems. You got joys.
yeah,
You got pain.
yeah. I mean, um, I've certainly heard of worse upbringings than, I had a pretty happy home. Now,
And yet you
is it
still
the
have
home that was the
problems,
issue or my
right?
own personal darkness?
Well, I say that again. I'm sorry,
I
I couldn't hear
said,
you.
is the home the reflection of that? What I'm saying is, if you think you've grown up in a certain, like, my sister is been very she'll certainly correct me in if I'm remembering something because she's seen it through her lens, right? I think we
It is
talked
about
about
the
maternal
lens.
representation, right? So her
Well,
experience
yes.
and my experience are happening at the same time, but hers is separate from mine because of the things that are already inside of me, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, all of this is to lead us breadcrumb back to the topic is um, okay, so if you're someone that relates to any of this, I want to hear about your personal experience and how it applies to, well, first of all, do you feel that you need to be on the lookout for and be able to pause? Have you
Me?
figured that about
Absolutely.
your, oh, okay. Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. I
Let's hear
will.
about that.
um,
Your favorite
I,
part.
I know it's my favorite part. Absolutely. I have to pause. If I don't, I mean, I can decimate, you know, neighborhoods. I can get pretty vicious and I know it.
Mm,
Because I feel like I'm shut down. And so this is what I've learned about myself. When I feel like I've been shut down, I have to get really, really quiet and decide if I'm going to respond or if I'm going to stay quiet. Because if I respond 9 times out of 10, it's going to come from a place of hurt. Um, and it may not be the current situation that's hurting me. Like I'm a grown woman. I can handle when somebody says, be quiet. I can handle it. But that kid in me wants to, bark at the moon and rebel or rebel, and the rebel comes out and the mouth goes. So I've really learned not to respond if I have perceived somebody as hurting my feelings or trying to shut me down, or invalidating my just mere existence. Um, so yeah, I have to pause. I have to. Um, Probably not. I'm not that great at it. I can get quiet, but then I'll stay quiet.
yeah.
So,
Uh, it was interesting that you said, when you're able to pause and give it a moment, whatever that looks like, 3 seconds to 30, right? That you get to
mhm,
decide on. And for me, that's the value of even listening to this episode. And it's like, I know we started 21 minutes ago. Hopefully you guys are still here, because here it is. Here's the crux of it. Like if you have this kind of personality where you boil over pretty quickly, you find yourself, saying, I didn't mean to say that. Right. If that's you, this episode's for you, and for everybody in between, because
absolutely.
the beauty in the pause is that you can make better choices. Like you said, you got to decide,
Mhm. I
right?
get to decide not only how I'm going to respond, but how I'm going to show back up. I'm not, and if I don't give myself that, like most people don't, they they say things that they may not actually mean to that person. This is where it comes back to the internal representation, the lens that we're looking through. We are now responding to something from our past that we have learned literally. Back to learning literally to be quiet. So I know I'm
I'm
trying
just
here.
smiling.
So, when we learn in that state that we're shut down, and then we fast forward 20 years, 10 years, 30 years, and the image pops back up with somebody shutting you down, you are now responding to the person from 30 years ago.
That's right.
It's not always directly related to the person. So we need to pause because we're going to say things that we don't actually mean in the moment.
All right. So, not saying what you mean, is that like you're kind of stuck in a loop, a pattern, or an auto response to some sort of stimuli that happens, sight, sound, whatever, right? That picks up a memory. One could maybe even call it something called a LERP, which is a long-standing, reoccurring, painful pattern, as we
Yeah.
learned, right? So
Yes.
something triggers that, whatever it is for
There you
any of
go.
us, we all have them, right?
Absolutely.
And then the triggering is what causes the mouthful to come out, unless you can practice. It does take practice. I was not a great pauser for, I mean, I still can't pause sometimes, right? Sometimes the trigger is too, it's a real trigger, and I will swallow my words sometimes, because I don't want that heated reaction to come out. I want to respond appropriately to to that which is right. So if I pause, I can kind of check out internally, where's this coming from? What is this long-standing, reoccurring, painful pattern, right? Like what's it tied to your point? Because it's not
Right.
tied to right in that moment what Tina just said to me.
Right.
Something that happened to
So,
me probably when I was 13 that I stored.
of course, literally. So
literally.
you literally. So the trick really is that sometimes we don't have the the ability or the time to pause. And in those cases, I I have learned that um, sometimes it's better to say nothing because we can't get it together. That's because guess what? We're human. We're human. So give yourself, like, even if you have to go, look, I can't do this today. If that's all you can get out of your mouth without being, a monster, great. You've won that one. That's a win. That's a win for somebody that can't get it together, that can't pause. It's a win. I can't do this right now and walk away. It's the safest answer. And yes, I know you're watching the clock. And I know, but this is so good.
Of
This
course
is
it
good stuff.
is.
This is good stuff.
This is like the
Because
real deal stuff.
right, right. Because there's so many people out there. I mean, think about you can think about it in just terms of driving your car. Like, can you drive your car and you live in a populated area and not have one moment of road rage that you've expressed? I'm not saying never express it. I'm saying to not do it because I am queen of it. By the way, by the way, funny little
So I
story.
will tell you that
I think we have
I
the same story.
I have absolutely experienced what you're saying, and I have incrementally made progress over the years of like, literally just reacting and yelling and screaming in the car at other cars that can't hear me, which is
Mhm.
and then like making gestures or flicking brights, like all the craziness that we see mostly here. Everybody's got their own version of road rage where they live.
Sure.
When you're in high traffic areas like Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, like it just gets amplified. In LA, out of every place that I've lived where there's traffic, LA is the most because it starts earlier and ends later.
It
it's
never ends. There is
it's just
traffic at
this
2 a.m.
huge block, right? Um, so I've seen myself paying attention. I've, listened to other educators and coaches um,
Right.
and
Well,
and so now it's like I'm working on just my mind not even thinking about something to say or do, right? I'm not taking any action now for quite some time. But now it's to the point where like I don't even want to think ill of somebody just because they were obnoxious or rude or didn't use a blinker or whatever, right? Like it's not my job to police the world's traffic problems. Changing one driver at a time.
the time. That's what we're doing right now. So if you're sitting in your car listening to this
Yes.
and you have road rage, just take a big deep breath and don't pay attention to the road rage. Don't give it the power. Think about something else. You're going to get to your destination no matter what. So, and that 6 seconds isn't really going to make a difference and it's not going to change anything by opening your mouth. I promise you it's not. I swear, because I've done it. I've done it. It's bad.
So I think you just alluded to a wonderful bridge to the next part of this as I am looking at the clock. Um, you just said, you just take just a big a big breath, right? And so
Mhm.
I wrote down earlier when you were talking is like, let's talk about like how do you pause? Like what are some mechanics? Like what do you do
When I'm driving or just
driving
in
in
life?
life? Like, because the pausing isn't exclusive to the the driving of traffic, okay? It's
Well, that's
life.
where I'm most boisterous is when my windows are up and I'm driving my car. Um, so there, yes, you just have to breathe. But the pause in an argument or a disagreement or a conversation really you have to almost turn inward, I think, for me. You have to kind of turn inward and really take that deep breath, step back. So that's what I do. I usually move all the way away because then I'm putting physical distance, tricking my mind, of course, putting the physical distance in, allowing myself to breathe, giving myself that quick second to go, do I want to do this right now? And the answer is always no.
Yeah.
It's always no. Not deliberately. It's just, the voice in your head where you go, no, I don't want to do this right now. It's not going to be cool. It's not going to be cool.
Right.
So at that point, then I know, like, you stay quiet, you walk away, you give yourself time to really bring down the boil, because some have said I'm like, a pressure cooker and it'll just go off. So we have to take some of that steam out before we unleash, because it will be bad. So years of knowing that, really, I just breathe, I step back, I move out of the situation, and then remove myself from the situation and get quiet and decide at this point, okay, do I want to take it on or not? Yes or no? And why? Like, these are the questions. Do I want to take it on? Why? Why? What does it serve? Why do I want to take it on? What does it represent for me? Where is this actually coming from?
Mm-hmm.
So that then takes the time. And if I get into those questions now, the time has, clicked away basically, and you can't go back. So I'd have to go back into that conversation and restart the conversation in a different way. And that's when I get to decide how I'm going to show up. What
Wow.
about you, Don?
Hang on. If you can't see this, I'm holding up my favorite pen. I'm just going to drop it because like that, I mean, I have so much to say on this topic, but I just feel like it's not needed at this point after what you just said. That was
Well, thank
amazing.
you. Thank you.
I took notes while you were talking. And I
You're
want
a
to
big
point
note.
something out that I don't do as a 6 foot, almost 6'1" Caucasian male that has the body of an athlete, tall and I'm broad shouldered, right? Like I don't ever think about stepping back. And I love that for everybody, however you identify.
Right.
Stepping back not only moves you away from the energy of what just happened that's causing you
Right.
to kind of tap into a lerp or whatever's triggered up for you. You
There
have
you go.
no idea. So the fact that you're stepping back, it almost creates physical space and time space.
Right.
This is wow, key takeaway of the episode. Nice job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks.
Wow.
Thanks.
Yeah, I love that. I really, if there's anything left that I'd like to kind of kick around is so I love where we've ended up here. And there's really the only part that I want to help our listeners to maybe grab onto some hope of, okay, great. I'm going to start pausing. Great. You guys, screw you with your pause. I'm going to pause. I'm going to count to three. I'm going to,
Sure I am.
like, sure I am. Right. Like, yeah, I almost swore.
Yeah.
Um,
Practice makes perfect.
but it's like, yeah, practice, first of all, but it's, what's the benefit? What am I getting out of this, watching and pausing and, stepping back? It's a rhetorical
Well,
question. You're so excited about this topic. I love it. Go ahead,
yeah.
Tina. Go ahead.
Well, you get to choose. You get to choose how you're going to show up. You get to choose how
Mm,
you're going to have the discussion with somebody, when you're going to have it. It gives you control of yourself, not anybody else, because you can't control anybody else. But once you take that control and that power back, you get to be who you authentically are. You get to show up as you.
I love that. Yeah, I wrote down, this choice, uh, because we're not talking about some sort of an addiction where you can choose to drink or not drink or use or not use. That is not what we're talking about, just to be
No.
clear. This is a choice of, I think it boils down to responding to whatever
Mm-hmm.
just happened in the moment or
Mm-hmm.
reacting. And I don't know about
That's
you,
right.
but I am a nuclear reactor. And my reactors don't have pause buttons.
So,
My control room does.
control room
Um,
does have one.
the other thing I wrote down that I loved, and I'm so I knew you were going to say it. I just wondered how you were going to say it. Like, is responding as your higher self with a
Authentic self.
capital
Yeah.
S,
Yeah.
or your lower self with a lowercase s, which is, riddled with humanity. It's
We
who
all
you,
are
who you
imperfect.
want to be, right? So you have to
Right.
kind of start taking the actions, which includes this idea of pausing, stepping back, and considering, how
Hmm.
do you want to show up? Is this my
I,
authentic self?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's,
that's been a big
that's,
one. My
yeah.
children were great helpers in that arena. It really allowed me to see myself, and who I want to be, and my friends and family, of course. But yeah, my children were very instrumental in my, and they didn't do anything on purpose. It was just, who am I to step up?
Yeah. I've been on that search since I was a teenager. Who am I? So,
Yeah.
you know,
So okay.
yeah.
So I've just graduated. I've completed. I have my graduate call on Tuesday with Melissa, but like I've just finished, we'll just call it finished, the second year of education at HMI, called
Congratulations, by the way.
thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, AOS. And we got
Uh-huh.
all these amazing educators and PhDs that are instructing us in areas outside of hypnotherapy. But then there's always this wonderful kind of bridge that's built, and an appreciation for the modalities that we're taught in the first year. And so, some of these instructors are just so wonderfully brilliant. And it was,
Yes.
I think it was Victoria who talked a lot about this capital S, kind of higher self, right? Which is like
Right.
what we're talking about achieving in hypnosis, to
Absolutely.
become that which you already are,
Hmm.
but don't think so, maybe. Right. And then the lower S, this kind of um, individual, kind of reacting through life.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can react if you want.
You get a choice.
You get a choice.
You
It's up
certainly
to
do.
you. So yeah. So I, yeah. Your authentic self is really, that's what, that's really what we're talking about, right? No matter what type of therapy you're doing, it doesn't matter. You are truly searching for your authentic self, and you you get glimpses of it all through your life, and it's just really hard to kind of get on that roll. But when you slow down and breathe, step back and really look at something, then you have a choice to come forward again as who you truly are, your
Yeah.
authentic self, your best self, your highest self, your most evolved self. You choose the words, but that's when you get to do that, when you pause.
You bring up so many wonderful points, and I, this the breath, allowing space physically and time, the time space
Hmm.
continuum, right? Taking a step literal and figuratively back. Uh
Absolutely.
and I've found, my personal experience and countless others, that when you're in this kind of gap of kind of quietness, right, stillness,
Hmm.
there's a moment where you can see your own truth in the moment,
Hmm.
and then, but but the physicality of what's happening is something is kicked off, what I call the lerp, or like, really the term that we're taught is that we're going into fight, flight, or freeze,
Hmm.
right? Our sympathetic nervous system is getting blown out for some reason,
You're being triggered. I mean,
whatever.
you're giving, a very, clinical answer, and but some people are just like, I don't even know what that means. So you're being triggered, just so everybody knows. Um, yeah, you're being absolutely triggered. And in that moment, you can choose that it's not a bad trigger. How about that? How about that? You can actually choose in that moment that you are deregulated to re-regulate your body back into homeostasis.
Say what now?
Yeah, you could. You could think about it. You could. You could. Um, yeah, there's a study that shows animals that are in fight or flight in those moments that the adrenaline and the endorphins from fight or flight, as they're walking away, and once they calm down, they kind of shake out all their muscles. Like they
Yes.
slow down, and it's fascinating. But
Yes. I
humans don't
recently read
have
that as
that,
well. I loved it. Yeah.
right?
Made a lot
But
of
humans,
sense. I'm a
absolutely.
leg shaker.
Well, what, restless leg syndrome? I'm
That's,
guessing.
but it's not restless leg. It's just
No,
it's an
no,
energy.
no, 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 no.
It's a way I purge.
Yes, yes. So, that whole stepping back, breathing, calming down, letting the chemicals that are involved in whatever we're seeing, you know, dissipate
Yeah,
back into homeostasis. That's what we're talking about, is getting back into that state.
I love it. Yeah, where you can access your higher self, your authentic self, like who you really are and want to be.
Right.
Um, I want to tie it into a real life example. I was working with one of my smoking cessation clients today. We're on his quit session, and we're the breathing technique that is paramount to their success, right? It replaces the call me mechanism, which is the hand to mouth, right? So that we
Hmm.
give them an anchor in that same hand, we give them a breathing technique, and that is the difference maker in anybody that's made it past 30 days, let alone years,
Hmm.
right? Is the
Right.
ability to pause and step back from your own thoughts of what's been triggered. And the
Hmm.
breath is, I asked them, I said, what's the most important thing I gave you? My anxiety clients, like, and I'm sure you have the same experience. It's like, it's the breathing technique. So do you
Yes.
have a specific breathing? I want to give our listeners a little something. If you've made it this far in the podcast, congratulations. Here's a
Yeah.
little breathing technique. Tina, what do you give your clients for breathing technique?
So, I've learned a couple of different ones that I use. First, you can do the box breathing, which is, 4, 4, and 4, which is the basic. I find easiest to explain to people. You breathe in for 4, you hold for 4, you exhale for 4. The key to that one, though, is you've got to actually count it out in your head, which allows your body to actually calm down and your brain to focus on the numbers, which your subconscious mind sees easily. The other one that I've learned that I think really works well is if you breathe in for 5, exhale for 5. The next one, you're going to breathe in for 6, exhale for 6. Breathe in for 7, exhale for 7. And you keep going till you get to 10, and then you come back to 5. 9 times out of 10, you're so mellow by the time you get back to 5 that you don't even need to keep counting. You just following this ebb and flow of your breath. It really, really works. It works really well to reset your your autonomic system, your parasympathetic system, like all of the nervous system, every system working on board will calm down because you're just focusing on the breath. And then you can step back even further. So what
Wow.
about you?
Nope. You've
Okay.
summed it up. You've said what I would say.
Okay,
I do
great.
like to I like to throw around like verifying terms of breathing. So that box breathing is actually also referred to as tactical breathing. And
Yes.
you can Google this. The Navy SEALs
Mhm.
use it to
Yes.
to regulate their system. And I like to tell my clients, if it's good enough for the SEALs, it's good enough for you. Right.
It's true.
Nobody's more
They're very
anxious
good.
than what they're facing.
That's true.
But yeah, you've just done a phenomenal job today. I love you so much. I'm so grateful that you're in my life and that we get to
Uh,
share these. I mean, like, I literally think it's been
it's been
50
45 minutes,
minutes. It just flew
50
right
minutes.
by. It just
Yes.
this
I'm
this
hoping
is
that it
what we
makes
do.
somebody's commute goes
Yeah,
by. And, I mean, we're always close around to that time. Not that it's a big deal. That yes, there are podcasts that last hours.
Yes,
Um, but we do what we do.
that's right. Well, I think this is a perfect place to end it. Your comments, questions, wonderings are welcome on any of the platforms.
Mhm.
We encourage you to like, follow, subscribe, and come along for the ride as we will meet weekly. And
Mhm.
as our subconscious speaks, really the only question is are you listening? Bye, everybody.
Have a good day.
Bye, Tina.